Hi, welcome or welcome back to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Mariandrea, and today I'm a bit late to doing a tag. It is Wednesday, but let's pretend it's Tag Tuesday. And this is the Reading Ticks tag. This tag was created by Kevin Toll Reads, and I was tagged last week by Marilyn Maya Mendoza. Thank you, Marilyn Maya, for tagging me to do this tag. Question number 1. Do you only read at a specific time of day? Absolutely not. I read at random times of day. Last week I served jury duty, and while I was waiting to be called in to the screening interview with the other jurors, we were waiting hours outside the courtroom. We were in the courthouse, outside the courtroom, um, waiting to be called in to interview with the attorneys. And for hours, I sat and read for the BookTube prize. I am judging in this round, in the 8th round, and it was good that I had time to read, and this was during the day. I'm notorious for eating on my lunch break, yes, reading on my lunch break. You always have either an ebook or a paper book that I am working through. So you'll probably more often than not find me reading on my lunch break. On weekends, I might do some morning reading, like when I wake up and I'm not quite ready to start my day, and I might just want to lay for a little bit and I'll grab a book and just read. I don't do a lot of reading before bedtime. Occasionally I do when I have evening downtime, but I'm more likely to read in the morning rather than the evening. But yeah, I just read whenever I have a moment and whenever I feel like I want to read. Question number 2 is, do you prefer to read in your work or everyday clothes, or are you partial to reading in your PJs or comfy clothes? Well, when I was at jury duty at the courthouse, I was in my professional dressy clothes, and I was happy to read. I don't really feel like I need to be reading in certain outfits or clothes. Yeah, it's always nice to be comfy when you're at home. So if I'm reading at home, I'm probably in some everyday, like comfy hoodies, sweatpants. If I'm reading in the mornings before I get up, I'm in my PJs. If I'm reading on my lunch break, usually because I'm working, and I am probably dressed professionally. So yeah, I don't necessarily have to be wearing specific clothes when I read. Question number 3. What is your favorite reading spot? Couch, chair, bed, outdoors, somewhere else? My favorite reading spot is my hammock. When it is warm weather, which is most of the year in South Texas, I like to lay in my hammock in my backyard, and that's my favorite place to read. When it's cold and I'm not able to lay in a hammock, I enjoy reading in my living room, in my comfy chair, or on the couch. I like maybe throwing out a blanket in my backyard and laying on a blanket and reading. I've enjoyed that before. A few times, not a couple, a handful of times in the last couple of years, I've gone to the beach, taken a book, and just sat by the seaside on the sand, just put out a beach blanket and read. So yeah, my top favorite would be my hammock, but other than that, there's a lot of others. I enjoy sitting by a window and reading. So, like when I'm out to lunch, I try to sit by a window. I just like the natural light while I'm reading. Question number 4. Do you snack while reading, or is this a no-go? Of course I snack while I read. I um I'm partial to chocolate. I really like having some chocolate to nibble on while I read. I like cookies, especially if I get to bake them. That's always a treat when I bake, and then oftentimes after I do a bake, I'll sit and read and enjoy what I baked. And my favorite thing to bake for reading is cookies or bars. Trying to think what else. Occasionally I might have some ice cream while I read, but I tend to either sip or just nibble on something. Those are kind of my eating habits, and nothing that requires eating too much. Like when I'm having lunch, I often prefer having an ebook if I'm eating something messy, because I can just prop it up and then just with my finger um, move the pages along, rather than have to hold it and get the pages sturdy. Um, so it depends on what I'm eating. Yeah. I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's any other thing that is unique or particular. Question number 5. Do you have or have you ever peeked at the end of the book, or do you avoid spoilers at all costs? I tend to avoid spoilers in the sense that sometimes I don't want to read the back cover or the jacket. Sometimes I feel like there's just too much. So I might start scanning, and then if it starts to get too detailed or too in depth, I will stop reading the flaps or the back of the book. I like to read blurbs, so more often than not, I'll just really look for blurbs rather than publisher summaries. Occasionally, I have read the last sentence in a book. I think that might be a fun video if I put book covers or change the jackets of books, and or maybe flip the jackets inside out and then read the last sentence in like a video, and you won't know what book it is, but maybe I'll just kind of like the quick to judge tag that's been going around, but instead of reading the first paragraph, maybe read the last sentence. That might be kind of fun. I might try to do that at some point. Question number 6. Do you prefer first person or third person narrative, or do you care? I think I prefer first person. I really struggle with second person. I'm thinking of the book America is Not the Heart by Elaine Castillo. I really liked it, but I remember struggling with the second person narration. I liked it, and I thought maybe I should give this another go because I struggled. So second person is really tough. First person is probably my favorite, and then third person is okay too. Question number 7. Do you read dedications, author's notes, acknowledgments? Yes, I do. I have bought books solely because the introduction is by someone that I really admire. So this copy of Death Comes to the Archbishop by Willa, Cather. I had this book. I read this book with Melinda at Web Stories last year. I had the book on an ebook and also the audiobook, and I ended up buying a paper copy of it because this Penguin Classics edition, it has an introduction by Gali Fajardo-Anstein, and Gali Fajardo-Anstein quickly became an auto-buy author for me last year after I read Sabrina and Corina. So this book has an introduction, and I do read the intro. Sometimes, just depending, I might start by reading like part of it and then kind of see, like in this introduction, Khalifa Hazel Einstein starts talking about the history of the U.S. Mexico border and New Mexico. So that's, I think, a good way to like set the tone and the setting for the novel. And then if it gets too much into like once she starts talking about her experience reading or her thoughts about the novel, then I might just put it down and then come back to it when I finish. So this one has an introduction that I'm really excited about. This book here by Valeria Luiselli, Lost Children Archive. I'm planning to do a review of this book. This was the January pick for my book club, Books and Bocadillos book club. And this book is essential to have when you read, because I think that the audiobook is fantastic, but I think that if you don't have the physical copy, you miss out on some things like there's photographs in here, the Polaroids that match the story. There is a works cited page that is a gem, seriously. I would almost recommend if I'll talk about this in my review, but if you haven't read this book and you're looking to read it, read the works cited page before you start it, because I think it will kind of prepare you for what the writing style will look like and where the author is drawing inspiration from. And I really like the acknowledgments to this book. I'll probably read the acknowledgments when I do my review of this book, but I do. This book is one that I feel like all of those components add to the book. And I do like to look at dedications. I really do. I think dedications can be really telling and sweet. I think Mia P. Manansala in her Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery Cozy series has really sweet dedications, and she also has author's notes at the beginning that I think are really valuable, especially for sensitive readers, because she does talk about trigger warnings and maybe like inspiration for the story. Question number 8. Do you have a favorite reading beverage? Tea. I usually like to sip on some tea when I read. If it's winter time and it's cold outside, maybe a hot chocolate. There have been times, we didn't do it this year because it didn't really get too cold. Like Christmas was not cold, but when it gets cold around Christmas time and we have a Christmas tree outdoors, I've enjoyed sitting by. We have like a little fire pit, and I like kindling the fire and maybe having like a mixed drink, a cocktail, something like crema de mezcal to sip on, or sangria, or some sort of festive like mulled wine, mulled cider, something like that might be really good to sip on while I read by the fire. Question number 9. How do you decide what to read next? I think my friends decide what I'm reading next. I have some friends who will send me book recommendations in real life, and I might, or maybe they'll tell me what they want to read, and if it's a book that I'm interested in reading, I'll offer to buddy read with them. I like to connect with other booktubers, and so if somebody is interested in reading a book, this happens quite a bit with Melinda out of Web of Stories. She is someone that I often buddy read with, and she'll talk about a book either that she hauled or that's on her shelf that is one of those like ticking time bombs, like one of those that I forget what it's called when you put a time limit and then if you don't read it, it's gone. So sometimes she'll post videos about those kinds of books that she's giving a timeline to, and then I'll say like, oh hey, I've been wanting to read that one. So that's one that if she mentions a book that she wants to read and I also want to read it, she might just tell me, okay, well, I'm reading this in April, and so I'll join her with someone. But usually it's like that. Like if a friend says, I'm really wanting to read this book and I own it and it's on my shelves and I really want to read it too, might just feel like kismet. So then I don't know if the last prompt is to tag someone. I'm gonna tag. The last video I watched was by Stuart Griffin, so I'm gonna tag Stuart Griffin because he was the last booktuber whose video I watched. And someone that I haven't tagged in a while is Sean Holt, so I'll tag Sean Holt. And I'll tag Gina, Library Mouse Gina. And I'll tag Sui at Sui's Book Banter. Sui might have already done this tag, but sorry if maybe all of you have already done this tag, but those are the 4 that just came to mind because I either just watched their video or it came to mind or I have their video queued to watch next. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully be back with another video soon. Hasta la próxima.